Trying to explain something as wild as the Adult Swim hit Rick and Morty can be a daunting task. In the matter of moments, the two-dimension hopping heroes have gone from a dimension where people order pizzas to one where pizzas order people, and eventually to a place where people are chairs and the pizzas are… wait, what were we talking about? That doesn't even cover the dimension made of butts. Rick and Morty's multiverse is a complicated place, and part of the fun is that you don't have to go to the same place twice. Eventually, there can be too much of a good thing, and people take fun too seriously. And for Rick and Morty, that's personified in the Citadel and the Council of Ricks. As one of the few places that Rick and Morty has visited more than once, let's take a stab at understanding this weird, wild place. It's not easy being Rick. It means that you're the self-described smartest person in the multiverse, which also just so happens to contain an infinite number of other Ricks who, being Rick, are also the smartest persons in the multiverse. Still with us? Alright. Being the smartest person in the multiverse, for Rick at least, means rubbing some powerful people the wrong way. Generally speaking, that means authority figures and institutions. With Ricks across the multiverse stirring up trouble, that trouble can start to build up. Even worse, the problems that one Rick causes can end up being visited on a different Rick who is dimension skipping through the multiverse. Like we said, it's not easy being Rick. Every once in a while, a Rick has an idea that Rick thinks would make life easier for Ricks across the Central Finite Curve. For instance, there was a Rick who came up with a way to deal with an unwanted Jerry that might find his way onto a Rick and Morty adventure. That was Jerry Baree, where Jerrys are entertained while Rick and Morty do Rick and Morty things. That wasn't Rick C-137's idea, our Rick of Rick and Morty, though he wishes it was. The Council of Ricks wasn't his idea either, and he doesn't think it was a particularly good idea. The Council of Ricks and the Citadel where it stands was the idea of other Ricks to deal with all the consequences of the Central Finite Curve full of Ricks doing Rick-like things. For Rick C-137 and the artist formerly known as Rick, this was the antithesis of what being a Rick is all about. What's the point of raging against the machine if you're just gonna go and make your own machine? The central conceit of being a Rick, according to Rick C-137, is that with an infinite number of Ricks and universes, nothing really matters. How little do things matter? Early in the first season, Rick gives Morty a love potion, but forgets to tell Morty that if the recipient has the flu, the love potion becomes airborne. With an entire town quickly falling in love with Morty, Rick attempts to fix it but accidentally turns the town into praying mantis monsters. He tries to fix that problem but ends up turning everyone into Cronenberg monsters. Since there's no step down from Cronenberg monsters, Rick tuned into the multiverse and found a Rick that solved the problem he couldn't, but also didn't solve the problem of not dying in an explosion immediately afterwards. Rick C-137 simply popped into that universe moments afterwards and took up residence there. Keep in mind that Morty's family wasn't affected by the love potion, so our Morty Summer, Jerry, and Beth were left behind to live out their lives in a Cronenberg world of Rick C-137's making. That's not the kind of Rick that has a lot of interest in consequences. For Rick C-137, an organization, even one made up of Ricks, is just another body of authority with rules and regulations and consequences that he'd rather leave behind like so much Cronenberg monsters. Or regular people who used to be Cronenberg monsters before a Cronenberg Rick messed things up and fled to a world of Cronenberg monsters abandoned by its Rick. The Central Finite Curve can get a little complicated. The takeaway is that Rick, by his nature, will defy authority, and to deal with the fallout of that defiances can create a group of Ricks that become an authority themselves. And if there's one thing that Rick C-137 and the artist formerly known as Rick can't abide, it's authority. And thus the conflict between Rick C-137 and the Council of Ricks. The Council of Ricks and the accompanying Citadel of Ricks had a pretty good run of things. It's suggested that the Citadel has existed for at least 15 years, meaning one time it was nothing but Ricks, since it was built in a time before Mortys. Or Mortys occur at different times for different Ricks. We did say that being a Rick wasn't easy. That includes sorting out how exactly reality works. During that time, some Ricks have decided to live at least a part of their lives as functionaries of the Rickocracy, something that Rick C-137 finds to be the antithesis of being a Rick. Rick C-137 has added the Council of Ricks to the list of organizations he gives the middle finger to. That means that when something goes wrong, Rick C-137 is usually the one that they go to. That's how Rick C-137 introduces the concept of the Council of Ricks and the Citadel of Ricks when they come looking for Rick C-137 for the murder of 27 Ricks by another Rick, including another Citadel of Ricks doubting Rick, the artist formerly known as Rick. Naturally, Rick C-137 isn't the Rick killing all the Ricks. Instead, it turns out that the honor goes to another Rick who, like the Citadel of Ricks, has set up a pocket dimension for a base and shielded it from the multiverse by torturing captured Mortys. Ricks can get pretty darn dark. Once Rick C-137 traces the hack on his portal gun back to the rogue Rick, he's able to alert the Council of Ricks who was the responsible Rick. This is where things get tricky, however. Rick C-137 has that Rick confidence, and he's always ahead of the game. That sort of casual disregard can mean that he can miss some details, especially when it comes to his grandson Morty. As Rick C-137 portals out the Council of Rick, officers discover that the rogue Rick is in fact a robot, but they don't know who. In the last shot of the episode, the audience gets to see all the Rickless Mortys being loaded onto transports to the Citadel of Ricks, including the eye patch wearing Morty that was the Morty to the robot Rick. As he pulls off his eye patch and disconnects the controller hidden within, we find out that there was an evil Morty pulling the strings all along. Dun dun dun! Isn't it a hassle when something gets so big that the weight of its own organization gets in the way? There's always a way out. The YouTube algorithm tries hard, but there's only so much it can do. There's a way to help it along without having to make your own portal gun, though. Just click on that subscribe button and then ring the notification bell, and you'll be alerted to all the latest comic book resources content right in your inbox, ready for you. I know it's amazing. If you're on your mobile device, and you can get into your settings and turn on notifications to get your content on the go. No Mortys are harmed in this process. Okay, so where were we? Right, Evil Morty. While the story of Evil Morty isn't over, there's another big change coming to the Council of Ricks before we come back to the diminutive mastermind. There are a series of events that led back to the Citadel of Ricks that both highlight why the Council of Ricks exists and how it can be a problem for Rick C-137. It all starts with a party. Well, two parties really. One that Summer throws and one that Rick throws while Beth and Jerry are off on a Titanic-themed park. At that party, something seemingly innocent happens. Well, kind of innocent. Summer's friend Tammy ends up hooking with Rick's old friend Birdperson. It turns out it's more than just infatuation, because later Rick gets an invitation to the wedding of Birdperson and Tammy. Rick being Rick doesn't feel like attending, but Jerry being Jerry forces the issue by getting himself transported to the wedding, forcing Rick and company to attend as well. Turns out Rick was right for the wrong reason. Instead of being boring, their wedding turns out to be an elaborate plot by Tammy, an agent of the Galactic Federation. She was sent to Earth to become friends with Summer and gain access to Rick and his rebel friends. By inviting them all to the wedding, she's able to round up the Federation's most wanted in one fell swoop. While this doesn't result in Rick being captured, it does result in the Smith family going on the run with Rick to hide from the Federation. Something that doesn't sit well with the Smiths, who already had a shaking relationship with Rick and his shenanigans. After overhearing Jerry float the idea of turning Rick in, Rick decides to take matters in his own hands and turns himself in. This brings us back to the Council of Ricks. Rogue Ricks, or Ricks who have been compromised, are a problem for other Ricks. One of the things that makes Ricks so unique in the multiverse is their ability to traverse the multiverse via their portal gun. That means that everyone wants to get their hands on the portal gun technology. One of the chief responsibilities of the Council of Ricks is to keep portal technology out of the hands of people not named Rick. So while a Federation agent attempts to use a mind probe to trick Rick into revealing portal technology, the Council of Ricks sends an elite team of Ricks to kill Rick C-137 before he can release the portal tech. Of course, Rick C-137 has a plan. Rick always has a plan. While he pretends to reveal the secret to portal technology, what he really did was provide a code that would give him control over the prison station he's on. Meanwhile, he takes over one of the Ricks from the strike team and brings the Federation's prison and the Citadel of Ricks together into the same place, solving both of his problems at once. Rick kills the Council of Ricks, and the Federation takes a blow as well. Just for the record, in one season, Rick C-137 has abandoned the universe that he started in and his original body. At this point, we're just watching the consciousness that regards itself as Rick C-137. Like we said, it's not easy being Rick. So that's it for the Citadel, right? Well, even if the Council lost its way, there is still something there for the Ricks of the Central Finite Curve, so some of them have taken upon themselves to rebuild. Naturally, Rick C-137 has no interest in it, taking off to an underwater world when a Rick and Morty show up collecting to rebuild the Citadel. Once again, Rick C-137's casual disregard for all things not Rick C-137 means that Rick misses out on important details. In the Ricklantis mix-up, or Tales from the Citadel, we learn what life has become at the Citadel, including what happens to the Rickless Mortys from Evil Morty's compound. These days, the Citadel of Ricks is in a society of Ricks, with cookie companies and a police force of both Ricks and Mortys. There's even a school for Mortys that have lost their Rick to prepare them to being paired with new Ricks, and one tall Morty that looks like a Rick. Could Tall Morty be the brain-swapped Rick that was with Evil Morty? Meaning that Evil Morty is actually a Rick consciousness with a Morty body while his Morty consciousness is in a Rick's body? Maybe, maybe not. Being a Rick isn't easy. The Citadel of Ricks is now a democracy with various Ricks running for president and one dark horse Morty. In the new Citadel of Ricks, there is a slum where Rickless Mortys who haven't been reassigned live, and Rickless Mortys are treated, well, like Mortys. But after a rousing speech during a debate, Morty pulls out a surprise victory and becomes president. Though that's not his only surprise. What kind of Morty could be clever enough to win an election in a citadel run by Ricks? None other than evil Morty himself. Dun dun dun! Again. Once in power, Morty shows exactly how ruthless he is. The only one to seem to know that he was the nefarious evil Morty is shot out of an airlock, and the cabinet of Ricks that had become the de facto leaders of the Citadel were also eliminated, so that only those loyal to evil Morty are left. It's pretty clear that evil Morty has big plans for the Citadel of Ricks, but it's not clear what those plans are. To be fair though, the Citadel of Ricks, even without the rule of evil Morty, isn't exactly peace, joy, and pancakes. Genius Ricks grind away at menial jobs and are exploited by other genius Ricks to make cookies and other boring for a Rick things. The Mortys of the Morty slum have their own corruption, including the Mortys on the police force. It's still possible that evil Morty's plan isn't as evil as what the Citadel of Ricks has become. On the other hand, evil Morty did shield his compound with a net of tortured Mortys, so... While we haven't revisited the Citadel of Ricks yet in the 4th season, but with evil Morty making big plans and having a particular fascination with Rick C-137 revealed by his robot Rick, it's bound to come around again. Only time will tell what will become of the Citadel of Ricks after that. And that's a little of the background and history of the Council of Ricks. What do you think is next for the Citadel of Ricks? What part of the Citadel would you like to see more of? Do you wonder what that cookie tastes like? Let us know in the comments, and while you're there, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for the latest CBR videos. Thanks for watching.